This doesn't happen often, but when it does, it is incredible. You see a battle that just completely invigorates you. As we get deeper and deeper into the whole competitive Pokemon thing, we tend to think we've seen it all, and for most of us, we don't really get that jolt of excitement that inspires us to push things further outside of seeing new creative sets take off and do amazing things. Now, that does happen fairly regularly, of course, but to me, the more profound experience, if we can call it that, is seeing a game like this one, where a player gives a performance so spectacular, it just lights a fire under your ass, and it makes you want to get back out there and compete. I have not had the desire to play seriously in a very long time, but watching this today, so I'm ready to get back out there, now. And, just in general, it's, so I'm going to, go back to the gym tomorrow. I had a pretty good session today, but, tomorrow I'm going to, get on that bench press and think to myself, you know what? You remember that game yesterday? If he can do that, you can, push it further. So I think this game is responsible for a general quality of life improvement, at least for me. I hope it has some sort of similar effect on anyone else watching this. And yeah, so I will guide you along. So one of the players involved is Brofist, and if you know anything about Brofist, you probably have some inkling of where this is going. Now, I don't want to downplay his opponent. Matter of fact, one of the reasons why this game is so impressive is that his opponent is no slouch. Relous is one of the best Gen 7 OU players. Used to call him the Gliscor Whisperer because he would bring SD Gliscor in every game, and opponents would know that he was going to do that, and they would bring like 5 counters to it, and he would win with Gliscor anyway. He's an incredible player. So, and I mean, shocker, there's a Gliscor right there. So, but yeah, Brofist is well known for pulling off incredible feats. You may know him from that game in 2014. Good lord, that's 10 years ago. From that game 10 years ago where he missed 8 out of 8 focus blasts and still won. More recently, I mean, it's still several years ago at this point, but there was another instance where he repeatedly countered a Volcarona with Hydreigon. That one still boggles my mind a little bit. Yes, the Volcarona was Quiver Dance, Roost, Fire Move, HP Ground, but that still doesn't really answer how Hydreigon can counter it, with a standard Hydreigon special attacking moveset. It's not like it was running Head Smash or something. It was, and I still don't really fully understand how that one worked out. But yeah, so he is a player of such incredible prowess that during his peak, when he was constantly winning, huge game after huge game, he earned the nickname the Cheat Code, because having him on your team in a team tournament was, almost unfair because he was always going to win when it mattered. Incredible player, great team builder too. I don't think he got the props he deserved for that. But yeah, today we are exploring, it's been a while since he had one of his big games. They also used to call him the Punisher of Plays, even though I think that was more of a mocking nickname that teams because he used to get gassed up a lot by the Smogtor's chat because he was just so good, and then some players who wanted to be countercultural or something, he'd get up Stealth Rock with Heatran on Pharaoh, and someone will go, oh my god, look how he punished that play, stuff like that. But yeah, it's been a while, basically. Gen 6 and then really Gen 7 was where he established himself as one of the best. But then, life sets in, you get older, and, it wasn't really, he wasn't playing as much. And when he did play, it wasn't really his old self. So, sometimes you would still see flashes of, oh my god, this guy just is so good. But you wouldn't really see the super in the zone Brofist of the years before. And that's okay. I mean, that happens to that does happen to every single great player you could care to name. So, yeah. This game, however, I don't know when people were watching and going, that is prime Brofist. Even if he loses, this is, what he does, or what he did. And just to see that after so long, honestly, it just warmed my heart as much as it inspired me. It's always nice when you see someone who used to be as amazing as he was, come back and say, yeah, I can still do that. Matter of fact, he just does it, almost pushing it to new heights or something. Anyway, that's less quantifiable, whatever, because there are some debates. Oh, actually, the HP ground Volcarona countered by Hydreigon game was more impressive. Whatever. If you want to discuss that, feel free. I'll probably dig up the replay of that and put it in the pinned comment. So, yeah, we are not going to hyper break down the team preview or anything, because honestly, I'm not super in touch with the metagame trends of the more recent years of Sun and Moon. If this was a few years ago, yes, with pleasure, but I'm not as qualified to discuss them now, other than the basics, which is that Brofist has a team that both hazard stacks, and with 2 Stealth Rockers and Defog in abundance, with both Scarf Landorus and Tapu Fini, as well as Diance's Magic Bounce. The goal is clearly to control hazards as much as possible. Stack them with Pharaoh, and keep them off with Diance or the Defoggers, so that your Kyurem Black and your Zapdos can go absolutely berserk. Relous, on the other hand, has another incredibly consistent style of team, this kind of chancy balance. I mean, it's got offensive options, but it's really hinging on the fact that the 5 Pokemon core of Scizor, Gliscor, Chansey, Toxapex, Hydreigon is actually very, very good defensively. And they kind of create offense through their ability to switch in so many times. I mean, even Chansey can be viewed as an offensive Pokemon sometimes. If you have a team without much longevity, switching into 100 damage from Seismic Toss is not the most comfortable thing in the world. So, even the most aggressive Pokemon out and out on this team is Hydreigon. Actually, ABR and I used to say, Scald, Toxic, Knockoff, Toxapex, our favorite set, that was a wall breaker. We call wall breaker Pex, because it's, yes, it's a wall, whatever, but it's also doing so much damage to everything. So, yeah, Hydreigon is the most aggressive, and I guess you could make a case for Ditto, because it's copying whatever scary Pokemon there is on the other side. But, yeah, that kind of offense really... Ditto kind of turns the tides against very aggressive teams and says, whatever big thing, whatever Kartana, Mega Mawile thing you want to throw at me, I'm going to throw it right back at you. But that's generally as aggressive as this team kind of likes to play, and that's what's nice about it, the flexibility that you can go fast or slow depending on the matchup, depending on how you want to play things, and that really fits Relis's playstyle, but he does generally favor the bulkier side of things. So, we are getting into it with Ditto scouting things in the first turn, transforming into Brofist's lead Zapdos. Only 8 minutes to click play. Wonderful. So, yeah, this Zapdos is Volt Switch, Heat Wave, HP Ice Roost, and with the Ditto being Scarf, it is going to get an initial Volt Switch off and block Brofist with Gliscor and activate Gliscor's Toxic Orb. But Gliscor's not going to stand and get HP Iced, and Brofist knows this and punishes that play beautifully, just classic Fist. Going right to Ferrothorn on the Chansey to threaten Knockoff. Removal of the Violite is huge, and or Stealth Rock. So rocks go right up, and here we see the principal dilemma that Brofist is placed in. You realize Toxic Spike's Toxapex is actually a major, major pain here. Yes, 2 Defoggers, yes, Magic Bounce Diancie, but even if the Diancie had gotten that Mega Evolution off right away, you'll see the problem that Tapu Fini comes in, because if Tapu Fini comes in after T-Spikes are set, Misty Terrain does not protect it from the T-Spikes. It will protect it from a Toxic, but other than that... No, if it comes in and sets Misty Terrain. Obviously, while Misty Terrain is active, then it'll be protected from T-Spikes just like Kyurem Black might. or Mega Diancie might. But if it switches in and Misty Terrain is not active, and then it activates Misty Terrain, the T-Spikes will kick in first. So if you want your Tapu Fini to not get poisoned and not just be hilariously easily stalled out attempting to defog, then you need to get it in on those T-Spikes turns. So yeah, that's problem number one. Problem number two, Tapu Fini is generally not... I mean, it depends on the moveset. If you're running things like Taunt, Knockoff, Nature's Madness, some mix of that, then yeah, you can mess with Pex a little more. But it's not running that. It's running Surf, Moonblast, Nature's Madness, Defog. A fine set, not something you want to be throwing into Toxapex. And with that in mind, the Pex is going to be outstalling it quite easily because Toxic Spikes has more PP than Defog. And even the second Defog from Scarf Landorus is not going to be helping that much. And comes Chansey on Nature's Madness, with Brofist not going for the Force T-Spike, since nothing on Relous' team can really force him to switch out and not get the Defog off afterwards, because it's very bulky. So, you can Nature's Madness first, Defog afterwards, and just want to get something going. And instead, Chansey comes in, and what's freakish about this almost is the fact that Chansey switched in right away and did not fear getting Nature's Madness into Taunt, because if Tapu Fini taunts here, then the Chansey is, I mean, sure, it can probably get a soft boil off somewhere, like on Zapdos later, but it will be at 27 when it comes back in if Relous doesn't get a defog off, or if Brofist doesn't defog off. But either way, even just being at 40 is really big. So, the Ferrothorn gets up Hazards again, Zapdos Volt switches, it's really scary. So, considering that nothing else really loves taking on Zapdos plus Hazards, it can be pivoted around, kinda, but it's not very comfortable. So you want Chansey. So yeah, if this Tapu Fini taunts the Chansey, then Relous is in major trouble. And there's no real reason to assume that it doesn't have Taunt. Matter of fact, if Tapu Fini is switching into Toxapex, then, I mean, I guess lack of a better option here too. But generally, you would want to have Taunt on it on a team that struggles against Toxapex like this one does. So that was those are some notes being made about the team building there, but that's not what we're focusing on here. We are focusing on the situation, the difficult matchup. So yeah, if this Tapu Fini has Taunt, Chansey is toast, at least for now. And the thing that was making people kind of raise an eyebrow was it's not like there's no other option. I mean, yes, Tapu Fini is actually kind of annoying to this team, but just praying for the no Taunt on Chansey immediately, is just, yeah. But I might be missing something, so if I am, please feel free to point it out. But I remember the people watching were going, did he just assume that it wouldn't have defog? And because if it, or it wouldn't have defog, wouldn't have Taunt, because he just stays and goes for soft boil on the forced defog, and goodbye. So now Pharaoh comes in on the second rocks, and it's going to get up rocks again. T-Spikes is going to come, Toxapex is going to come in, Terrain wears off, Tapu Fini is forced to come in again, and you see where this is going now, where Tapu Fini has to come in before T-Spikes go down in an effort to keep defog off. And with the double defog, you might be able to PP stall the 32 Toxic Spikes, since you've got 24 and 24, but it's still a difficult task because you're contending with Stealth Rock as well. So, yeah, Scizor comes in to get the Mega off on Fini's defog, and rather than risk getting knocked off, because Fini's leftovers are crucial, then Brofist goes to Zapdos on Scizor's Roost, then Volt switches out of Chansey, back comes Ferrothorn. So now Rock's initiative. It actually goes for knockoff, trying to catch Chansey. Hey, Toxapex has had his Black Sludge removed. That's actually quite nice, because one of the funny things about Gen 7 is that Toxapex tends to be actually fairly decent into Zapdos, which is hilariously awful. But without Black Sludge, if I call it lefties, obviously I mean Black Sludge, then it's obviously much worse at doing that. So, yeah, but now no Rocks pressure, but seeing as Misty Terrain is worn off and Tapu Fini is coming in to try and defog away the T-Spikes again, then, yeah. But now you see, the Toxapex isn't really threatened, so it can just keep T-spiking over and over, and run it out of defog slowly. And yeah, Nature's Madness, but without taunt, it's not forcing any issue. So you see where this is going. Relous basically has all the tools he needs to outstall Brofist's team. Also, with Misty Terrain wearing off, now the Pex can even threaten a Scald Burn. So yeah, ugly. Zapdos comes in on the next layer of T-Spikes, gets a Volt Switch on Chansey, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, Brofist can also go with the hazards. Well, yes, Brofist with the Spikes Ferrothorn, as in comes Lando to defog and take, hey, again, Seismic Toss doing a hefty chunk. Yes, he can overwhelm with hazards, but the problem is with Kyurem Black, Diancie, Mega Diancie, and Tapu Fini all affected by T-Spikes, then and Lando not having longevity, Pharaoh not really having much in the way of longevity, Zapdos having a Roost, but no lefties, then odds are, even with hazard stacking, it's going to be very, very difficult to keep up with the pressure from Relus's own, because Toxic Spikes are wearing things down. And to make matters worse, Mega Diancie and Kyurem Black are both, they're the wall breakers. They don't need the pressure of hazards alone like the other Pokemon do, really. But even their direct wall breaking is not going to be as effective. And a Violite holding Chansey is pretty decent into Mega Diancie. Scizor really helps play around it very well. Toxapex, Gliscor, this is a very anti-Mega Diancie team. And even Kyurem Black, you think, well, Z Kyurem Black, what checks that? Well, almost nothing except Mega Scizor. That's actually a big reason why Mega Scizor is used on such teams. So Pharaoh comes in on rocks, they trade rocks, in comes Fini again, kicking up the Misty Terrain. Here come the T-Spikes again. So, the rocks aren't even getting it anywhere, Brofist anywhere, because he has to come in and defog immediately right after. So there's a massive crit Scald. And yeah, now in comes Zapdos again on T-Spikes. So you see the loop that's happening here. And with the Zapdos not having, Electrium Thunder or something, then Pex isn't really scared of it, so it can stay on the Volt Switch, and Kyurem Black comes in. Now, you see Kyurem Black there switched in, didn't get poisoned by the T-Spikes, couldn't be burned by Scald because of Misty Terrain. So that was a nice way to switch things up, because you notice here that Brofist is in a loop, and this loop is one he will get outlasted in almost surely. So you have to find ways to break that loop, but whatever his options are, Relous has a good answer for them. Or at least a manageable answer. So to find ways to systematically break through, and here's what I'll say: most players, given this matchup on Brofist's end, they're mentally checked out. They're done. They don't have a chance. So yeah, inspiring learning lesson or whatever. So yeah, Kyurem Black forces the Mega Scizor in, and that allows it to get the defog. Oh, it doesn't go for the defog. It goes for the it goes to Zapdos on the Bullet Punch to get some nice Rocky Helmet chip, maybe some static. And this reminds me of when our buddy Jirachi used to refer to Brofist as Statistician's John, like statistician but with static, because he hated people cheesing with static Zapdos. So, yeah. Hypocrisy, it always comes back. Anyway, so Zapdos gets the roost off as Scizor runs away, and now Chansey. The nice thing is that Chansey doesn't have leftovers, so every little Volt Switch is going to force something. But now the Soft Wild goes off instead of Rocks. So there goes the defog, because you got to get rid of those T-Spikes. See, look at this. Lando's not doing anything but defogging. It's already at less than half its health after 2 Seismic Tosses. But it's that crucial to keep off those T-Spikes. And the thing is, you can't really do it forever. With Fini, with Lando T, it's not like PP is the only factor, because yeah, together you out PP the T-Spikes, but you are not going to be able to last long enough to do so. So yeah, Ferrothorn at least gets up rocks now. Again, Fini into the Pex, and oh, the T-Spikes went off. I skipped that turn by accident. Apologies. So yeah, T-Spikes again as Misty Terrain is kicked up from Misty Surge, and oh, now he goes for the Nature's Madness, trying to make something happen more. Regenerator means that Pex doesn't have to recover, but it's nice. It's limiting a little bit. So now, here's the interesting part. So with Brofist is breaking the loop, right? It's not just, defog and then, Chansey and Pharaoh and Pack to Pex. None of that. because we have seen this loop multiple times. So now, yes, the Finny did come in, kicked up that Misty Terrain before T-Spikes went up. Important. Nature's Madness chunked the Pex nicely. Now, Tapu Fini will not be affected by T-Spikes if it switches in while Misty Terrain is still active. However, if Misty Terrain runs out before Tapu Fini gets a chance to switch back in, then if he wants to avoid it getting poisoned, Lando T will have to get a defog off. And as we see here, Lando T is at, it will be at 34% switching in, because there's no way you're getting rid of rocks before that otherwise. Unless Tapu Fini comes in, but then Tapu Fini's been poisoned, that poison's not going away. There's no heal bell or aromatherapy. So, yeah, as Toxapex recovers off that Nature's Madness, then Kieran Black comes in, unafraid of T-Spikes because of Misty Terrain. Now, at 84%, Mega Scizor is still pretty good at switching into Kieran Black. It'll come in at 72. And he just goes right for the Fusion Bolt, though, because, you know, if you're going to also have to be drawn into this long game, this war of attrition, and if you can burn recovery PP like Scizor's Roost, then that will go a long way. And also, if the Toxapex stays in and tries to burn a turn of Misty Terrain to make it that much more, to make it so that he can more accurately predict the Tapu Fini coming in to try and get back in before the T-Spikes go down, then you still punish it quite nicely, as that Fusion Bolt does a hell of a lot. It recovers off, but note the lack of Black Sludge here, whereas it recovered 50 and would have been 56 with Black Sludge, obviously 56.25 if you want to be precise. And so yeah, you notice that the Fusion Bolt is sticking, I mean, a little bit more. And no, it's not a lot, but a little goes a long way. You know, we're counting recovery PP, we're counting every percentage of damage. Actually, it doesn't even do anything here because it's still in range for Regenerator to bring it back up to full. You know, so yeah. It's the thought that counts, I guess. Anyway, so yeah, now we're getting into interesting territory, though, because to go back there, you notice Hydreigon switched in, and you're like, whoa, what's up with that? Hydreigon switching into Kieran Black. So now you're a little afraid, though, because yes, Mega Scizor is still pretty good at switching into it at 72, but with Fusion Bolt hitting hard and then Z Freeze Shock being nasty, then you're also kind of thinking, okay, you know, this could get a little dicey. So with that in mind, Relous is attempting to pivot into Hydreigon here, because the move, damn it, I didn't want the Ice Beam to go off. Whatever, okay, you see it. You know, if something's great, then having it spoiled a little like that doesn't really matter. But yes, Hydreigon comes in because Fusion Bolt is the play, right? Because you want to hit Scizor as hard as possible on the switch, and you don't want to just go wildly throwing around your Z Freeze Shock if you are going to, because you might not hit your target and then you might have wasted it. You know, you need to be very precise in this matchup. Kieran Black is so important, and you don't want to just, you know, throw KB away, you know, needlessly wasting its potential. It's not in a rush. Also note that Misty Terrain's about to run out, so Tapu Fini is going to be poisoned when it comes back in, unless you get that Lando defog off, which is going to be a suicide defog pretty much in most situations here. So that's going to be really tough. How is that going? But again, this is something Brofist is aware of. So when he chooses to stay in with Kyurem here on this turn, instead of going to Tapu Fini before Misty Terrain comes out, which incidentally wouldn't have been bad, then because Hydreigon winds up switching in. But you know, he also thought, you know, two things. Number one, the Tapu Fini is going to come in as Scizor likely comes in, right? So and remember, Tapu Fini ran away from Scizor before, so now it's running away and still probably getting poisoned by the T-Spikes. Also, because it's afraid of knockoff, and if it stays and get the defog off, it's getting knocked off and losing lefties, and that's bad. Also, you'll notice that even if it does get that defog off, Pex is just going to get them back up. This is not going to be won that way. So Brofist is switching gears. It's no longer going to be, you know, you're pretty much committing to this. it's no longer going to be, oh, well, try to outstall the T-Spikes. It's just not going to work. Also, you kind of need Tapu Fini to stay healthy because you need it defensively against things like Hydreigon, and if Ditto copies Kyurem Black or Mega Diancie, then that could be kind of nasty. So, Hydreigon comes in, and as you saw, the Kyurem goes for Ice Beam, and it not KOing the Hydreigon is kind of funny, but it makes sense because, it's not investing in special attack on a set like this. Still funny. It's not even a super bulky Hydreigon, I think. These things are like Z Dark, Earth Power, Roost, Defog, sometimes Flash Cannon over Earth Power. I don't know if that's still a run, but when I was actively playing Sun and Moon, that was a very good option. But, yeah, whatever it is, Z Dark, could go Z Steel if you really wanted. I don't remember if I'm hallucinating that or not. But, yeah, Hydreigon comes in and lives the Ice Beam. And what's astonishing is the foresight Brofist had to not just, because Ice Beam into Scizor, that doesn't do anything. You can't even say, LOL, he was trying to freeze the Scizor because Misty Terrain is active. So it couldn't have frozen the Scizor. No, he realized that Hydreigon is almost surely pivoting in. You could also say Gliscor, but the thing is that Gliscor doesn't actually threaten Kyurem in return, so it's much less likely that it would be used to pivot in. Whereas if Hydreigon pivots into Fusion Bolt, it can actually do something to the Kyurem Black. Flash Cannon is better than Earth Power here because it actually hits it super effectively. So, yeah, that was incredible because if you then, pivot on the Fusion Bolt, you actually threaten it, and you don't want to just, dick around against this thing. So you provoke an Ice Beam, Scizor gets in more safely, gets the Roost off, all is well. So for Brofist to have the foresight, because it's not an intuitive move either. It's not like this was an obvious Hydreigon pivot. There are cases of pivoting into big threats that are done all the time, but they are more, obvious. I had to restate it. I'm tired, okay? Then you can kind of see, like when, to use a common example, when something is pivoting into Focus Blast from Gengar or Alakazam, so then T-Tar can come in on their stab move. That's a more obvious one. But this is not a common line of play, pivoting Hydreigon into Kyurem Black. So it's not even like the Kyurem Black is in particular danger range. So, and this is a type of move that Brofist, really excelled at. And to see it pull out so well here, this kind of not obvious prediction. Because a lot of the time when you look at your moves, you get stuck between, I have two options, maybe three, but they all seem fairly obvious and you're just picking between them. But the Ice Beam here was not obvious because the Hydreigon was not obvious. So for that to even be considered and then actually gone ahead with, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So, Hydreigon's in here, and incidentally, is it in Stealth Rock range? It is in Stealth Rock range. So that is important to note, because if, Defog doesn't go off, then suddenly it can't pivot into anything. It can't even switch in on like a Lando EQ or something. I guess it could be used to block Lando's Defog by sacrificing itself to Stealth Rock, but yeah. So, Hydreigon goes for the Z. There's Black Hole Eclipse, Dark Pulse, and it just barely misses out on the KO, leaving Kyurem Black at 3%, and KB roosts. Not even going for the KO, instead realizing how important this is, and thinking, okay, well, this Hydreigon is either going to attack or defog or, something. Probably not defog because of the pressure T-Spikes and Rocks are putting on Brofist's team, way more than the Rocks are putting on Relous's team. So, sorry, I tried to say 16 things at the same time again. Basically, just seeing what it's going to do. Is it going to Dark Pulse right away? Is it going to, Roost as I try to switch because I'm fearing Flash Cannon or something? But no, and Brofist does have the timer pop up, as you see there, 180 seconds, which is actually a pretty high timer by Brofist standards. He was very famous for having that timer drop to 5 seconds. But hey, that's the mark of a player who's really thinking through every single option. And not just considering it, but really thinking it through. But yeah, so I assume that was spent on the calc, seeing, hey, do I live this Black Hole Eclipse, if that is what it's gone for? And it does, and it roosts off. and now it can't do that again, and it will live a Dark Pulse. So now, with the next roost being very, very safe, then Brofist goes for that. And you could say, oh, well, why didn't he predict Infusion Bolt? It's like, well, he could, but then consider this. If he doesn't roost there on that turn, then he's at 53, and he'll have to switch back into rocks later, and he'll be forced out by Scisor's Bullet Punch, so he won't even get to threaten it with that Fusion Bolt into Freeze Shock to a KO nearly as well. And yes, Scizor will be weakened, but Kyurem Black will be greatly hindered when it comes back in, so it's better to just make sure the Kyurem is as healthy as possible, because it is such a huge win condition. So, the roost goes off, Scizor comes in, almost surely going to roost itself to stay in better condition, because, you know, if it couldn't switch in before, it's definitely not going to want to switch in after another round of rocks. So that gives Zapdos a free switch. In comes the Chansey, and it's going to Volt Switch right away, going for the momentum, and in comes Lando T to defog away those T-Spikes. It is going to get Seismic Tossed into Stealth Rock range, though, and we know now that the Chansey is going to Stealth Rock, obviously, but it was more about getting rid of the T-Spikes. So Ferrothorn comes in, here come the T-Spikes again. Oh no, the T-Spikes again. Well, yes, but also the Stealth Rock, I thought, but I forgot he did not actually go for Stealth Rock there. He goes to Mega Diancie, so he's still trying to deal with the T-Spikes insofar as now Diancie exists as an option to Magic Bounce them back. And it goes for an Earth Power, but in that one-on-one it's not 2 KOing, and fortunately it avoids the Scald Burn. But now in comes Fini, but again it's going to be hapless to prevent the defog, the T-Spikes if it wants to stay in, but Relous goes for the safer option of going to Chansey rather than risking any, you know, big rolls. He knows the calc better than I would, or, you know, a crit or something. Chansey is much safer. And Brofist tries to get Tapu Fini in on the, I think, you know, get the Misty Terrain going, not necessarily defog, but yeah, now Relous makes a great move, doubling back to Toxapex against the Tapu Fini, very riskless, and now can get those T-Spikes up against Pharaoh, and they're up. I mean, the Misty Terrain is active, meaning that Kyurem Black or Mega Diancie or Tapu Fini will not be affected by them for the next few turns, but they will. I mean, they're still a threat, of course, and yeah, and they're still dealing with rocks, of course. So now Brofist tries to get Kyurem Black in with Misty Terrain active against the Pex, and Relous sees that coming, makes a beautiful switch to Scizor. So again, here comes the pressure. Now Brofist goes to Ferrothorn instead of Zapdos, because Zapdos will be at half health with rocks up. If he gets U-turned on, it's bad news. If he gets knocked off, then, I mean, also not ideal, but mainly just trying to avoid the U-turn. And it is indeed going to go for a knockoff. We don't know the Scizor set if it's SD or U-turn or anything like that, or Pursuit, things like that. But yeah, Pursuit actually would have been ideal against Kyurem there. It definitely would have been clicked, I think. But Ferrothorn loses its lefty, so that's big in the war of attrition. And now Scizor is going to roost up. And now Brofist goes for the spikes. And here we see the commitment. Okay, you know what? This whole try to keep the T-Spikes off thing, it just won't work. Now we're just going to try to overwhelm with hazards. So, Pharaoh gets another layer of spikes as Gliscor comes in. The second layer, I have serious opinions about that. No, not yet, because I don't know what else you could have done there to... No, you couldn't have made a switch, because it's very likely that Scizor has U-turn, and switching there and getting U-turned on is not actually makes it much worse. So Relous just made a good move by hard switching and not incurring Iron Barbs on Scizor for very little reward. But yeah, since the U-turn was so obvious, then Brofist couldn't really switch out there. So that was a rare... And it's not like Power Whip on the Gliscor switch, aka the big threat, is really going to make much difference. So, second layer of spikes, and now in comes Zapdos. So, Gliscor SDs. Now we are in a precarious position, because if the Zapdos is slower, then it's going to get dropped. But most of the time it's going to be faster. But if it's faster, you know, does it HP... It won't KO with HP Ice, but if it roosts and gets Earthquaked, then ball game over. But obviously, Relous does not want to needlessly take an HP Ice and Earthquake and do nothing. That would be a waste. So Brofist knows that and goes for the Roost, and Ice Fang chunks it for, very little because it's lost the flying typing. So, and it even gets some nice Rocky Helmet chip. I mean, that's not really going to make a difference in terms of whether or not HP Ice is going to 2 KO it. But more importantly, the Zapdos is now out of Ice Fang KO range, so it will win this one-on-one. And rather than rack up that huge damage with HP Ice, then Relous chooses to preserve the Gliscor and switch to Chansey on the HP Ice, getting ravaged by hazards. And in comes Ferrothorn again off the Volt Switch to get that third layer. Now, the third layer is obviously the big one, and it's going to be really putting a lot of pressure on Chansey, on Scizor, on Toxapex, even on Ditto. So, in comes Gliscor again, and in comes Zapdos again. Same exact situation. There's the SD. Now, I mean, since you've gone through this scenario before, obviously you're thinking, well, this time you Earthquake, right? But yeah, no, Brofist roosts again and gets another Ice Fang. And once again, the Gliscor is going to be forced out. Thing of beauty. So he's just going to go for the safe HP Ice, I assume. Oh my god. I can't... I remember when I saw that Volt Switch, I was like, he did not just do that. Because the Gliscor is such a threat. But that's the thing. It's a difficult move to make. It's an incredibly difficult move to make. My god. Can the music... Oh, the playlist on Zame's Alola Tunes ended. So let's just start it from the beginning. Yeah. But knowing how risky that was, then you think, oh my god, how do you ever make that play? And the fact is, most players don't. But most players are not Brofist, haha. No, the point is that Brofist is very measured in these moves because he's aware that Relous is not just going to toss the Gliscor away in the 1v1. So, generally you do not want to dick around against something that is posing such an enormous threat. But when you are, so aware of how your opponent is thinking, then you are, and that I don't mean that to be a giant mind game or something like, oh yeah, man, I'm reading his soul. No, nothing like that. He just understands the position from the opponent's point of view. Big difference. So knowing the Gliscor is not going to be thrown away because it's so valuable and such a threat, seeing as look at all the opportunities it gets. And what the answer is, he knows he's not going to risk it and gets the Volt Switch, and that is exactly the kind of calculated move that you do, not just because you're predicting the switch, but because when you're behind, when you're fighting this uphill battle, you need to claw for every single advantage you can get, and that is exactly what he's doing here, making that difficult move. And now look, now he's going to actually go to Ferrothorn, rather than Kyurem Black. Because now I think it's much easier not to necessarily force the Chansey out with the hazards, but to guarantee the knockoff. I'm not 100% sure on that logic. I know there was some debate around it, but because if Chansey gets forced out from 40, not even, with max spikes and rocks, then it's going to be picked off by pretty much everything afterwards. But he took the more measured approach of knocking off that Eviolite. And yeah, so now the Seismic Toss, I think he was looking for Zapdos there, and he goes for another knockoff rather than Power Whip. Yeah. So let me try to make some sense of that with my frazzled brain and lack of update on some... Yeah, it's not even a metagame thing, it's just me not wanting to analyze the position. So, yeah. Chansey Seismic Toss looking for Zapdos or whatever, and Ferrothorn was knocking off looking for... I don't know what, actually. Yeah, I don't know what it was trying to knock off. Maybe the last move was just actually Gyro Ball or something, but... and knockoff was better. I don't know. That one I'm really not sure about. But, yeah. So, either way, the choice was to made to remove Chansey's Eviolite. So now it will even be less comfortable taking a hit from Diancie. I mean, Diancie's getting worn down, but it also might make a difference against Zapdos. Kyurem Black will Fusion Bolt it a lot more easily. So yeah, he's playing the long game now, but a more aggressive form of it. in terms of hazards clamping down on Relous' ability to switch. So now Zapdos into Chansey, and you're thinking, oh god, doesn't this just get toxic and lose? And then you realize, well, if it's toxic Chansey, the game is probably very close to over anyway. So at this point, you figure it's... Actually, you know what? You could also make the case of this thing would have used Toxic against Lando T if it had it. Because, Toxic is permanent. And then you no longer have to hit it and then do something on the switch. You can just spam rocks against it as it tries to defog, and then it will never keep those hazards off at all, even for a turn. Things like that. So you could make that call. But also, Brofist decides it's not just about, it's likely it doesn't have Toxic because it didn't use it against Lando T, because I'm sure you can also make a case for the more immediate damage of S-Toss. But given the War of Attrition route, I think Toxic thing makes sense. But also making the call that I have to bank on this not being Toxic, because otherwise it will just be too difficult. Sometimes I see this happen a lot, where someone will be afraid of X move on Y Pokemon, and try to play around it and be like, dude, you trying to play around that thing makes you so much worse against what the opponent actually has. Sometimes you do need to risk it not being that. Not, on turn 1 or something, not stupid stuff like that. But, at a certain point in the game, you have to, number one, think, how likely is it? Because a lot of time people will, get in their own heads. This is not this example. Chansey having Toxic is very reasonable to expect. But, the more general lesson is people will say, oh, what if it's this set that it's never going to be? I have to be afraid of that. It's like, no, you don't. And also, at a certain point, you have to just hope it's not that set, because your options for dealing with that set are so nil. You should rather just play to your strengths and not try to ruin your odds, which are actually pretty good, by playing around a set you do not have the tools to deal with anyway. I hope that makes sense. So I think it does, but I just have this need to over-explain and just really hammer the idea home. I used to teach, so that probably makes sense. Anyway, so Zapdos is roosting, and every time Chance, and the lack of Toxic there confirms this thing does not have Toxic. That is absolutely huge. We don't know if it's probably not Heal Bell with Gliscor, but yeah, whatever it winds up being, T-Wave or something. Confide for Calm Mind Reuniclus. Although, seems unlikely on that team, but hey, you never know. Wish, maybe. No, I think I would have used Wish. Yeah, so the Zapdos can just Heat Wave, stay in, and yeah, chip it down. I mean, it doesn't love being forced to roost. It can't do that infinitely, but nor can Chansey Seismic Toss, and there goes the static. And that introduces an interesting element, because if Chansey full pairs on the right turn as Zapdos Volt switches, that could be nasty. So now in comes Kyurem Black, and look, it's taking the rocks, and it's taking the poison, and yeah, so here's where it really gets intense. I mean, this Kyurem is still a massive threat. Also note the Brofist trademark of the timer, 30 seconds, then Zapdos Volt switches 30 again, 20, 15, in comes Kyurem Black. I feel it from seeing that timer. He's just stealing himself. It's like, you know what, dude? You got to accept the poison on this thing. You are not getting around it. The Kyurem will be poisoned. You have to deal with it. You have to make it work. Which is kind of insane, by the way. This is why Kyurem Black is so often paired with Tapu Fini, not just because of the great type synergy and defog, but because Misty Terrain lets it play around things like Toxapex, and you generally try to keep this thing away from status at all costs. So to try and go the distance against a bulky team who is trying to outlast you, that has already accomplished the task of statusing you, I mean, that is playing into their hands. Or accepting things on their terms, rather, how they would like things to go. So, yeah, the Kyurem is poisoned, and it's still going to have to make it work. It's got a roost here, but the good thing is that Chansey is now much more scared of Fusion Bolts, because without a Violate, it actually takes a lot of damage from every physical move. So it switches out. In comes Scizor with max hazards. Even if you wanted to attack, you shouldn't, because then you're getting worn down, chased out by Bullet Punch, that same example we had before. So now the Kyurem is just back to 76. Back to how it was when it came in, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Zapdos Volt switches, and it was at what? 70? Yeah, so now it's right back where it started. So, yeah, Scizor takes all those hazards, and down it goes. Zapdos comes in, because Scizor is also forced to roost, though, with the hazard pressure. So now we're really getting somewhere. And note that Zapdos, again, also doesn't want to Volt Switch forever. It's got a roost, but yeah, Scizzor's got more roosts. Chansey is lagging behind on Soft Boils as opposed to Zapdos' roosts, though. These are important to keep in mind. Now, what's the switch? Oh, here comes Gliscor to block the Volt Switch, and Zapdos fires off a hidden power. God, I mean, that was just an incredible move. And it's not a risky one. It's not like Volt Switching against the +2 Gliscor before. But the reason it was so impressive is because, not because it was like an amazing risk to be taken or something, but specifically because it has such huge upside. Look how badly Gliscor got chunked there. And because it didn't really have risk. I mean, even if Chansey switches in, who cares? First of all, Chansey is not exactly thrilled at the prospect of switching in, taking max spikes and rocks, and getting Volt Switched on, and then Kyurem Black coming in for free. So, Relous is going to try to avoid that, number one. So, again, Brofist understands where the opponent is coming from, and uses that to understand how he's going to try to disrupt it. Same exact principle as the Hydreigon thing earlier, except that one was also riskier. I mean, we had the Volt Switch on Gliscor thing, and the Ice Beaming into a possible Scizor switch thing, or Toxapex switch. Or Toxapex wasn't going to stay in and risk the KO, obviously. But Ice Beaming the Scizor, but recognizing that the Scizor didn't want to switch into the Fusion Bolt plus Freeze Shock, and Ice Beaming the Hydreigon trying to pivot in. This is the same kind of move. Recognizing Chansey doesn't want to switch into the Volt Switch with max hazards up, so Gliscor is going to try to disrupt it, and HP Icing. And the backbone of all this is much less risky than those other moves. Risky in terms of the Ice Beam into Scizor potential switch thing. Not quite the same thing, but the Volt Switching versus Gliscor certainly was. But this was much less risky, which also makes it a very measured move because... again, Gliscor switching into Zapdos Volt Switch is not the end of the world, because it's also not going to want to stay in for the 1v1. You can just HP Ice it after. But you also, not only do you step out ahead, of this plan, because yeah, you could just HP Ice into the Chansey afterwards and whatever, not much is really lost, you're fine. But you step out ahead, and now Gliscor is not able to switch into very much at all, for this major advantage for such a low-risk move. And even if Chansey does come in on the HP Ice, I mean, okay, fine. That's not the end of the world. It's not risky at all. So that was a beautiful, beautiful HP Ice. So now Gliscor is going to run away, and in comes Toxapex on the... Nope, not HP Ice, Volt Switch. So with max hazards and no Black Sludge, even Pex and its Regenerator are getting worn down. And with Volt Switch on top of that, this thing is in serious, serious danger. Here comes Kyurem Black, once again ravaged by rocks and poison. It's going to have to roost, but Toxapex is still going to switch out, so it's in very low health. Once again, Kyurem at the same shape. Notice all the pressure that's being put on by Zapdos and Kyurem, both weak to rocks, and Kyurem being ailed by poison as well. Scizor, once again forced to roost. Here comes Zapdos. Chansey comes in more comfortably since Zapdos is at half health now. It itself has to roost. But remember, he can stay in and Heat Wave. Force that Soft Boil from Chansey. Burn some PP. He's just going to throw around more Heat Waves. And he can't do this forever. He's going to want to throw in some HP Ices as well. But, yeah, because Heat Wave does not have infinite PP. But he gets another one there. Another S-Toss, wearing it down, forcing another Soft Boiled. We're now down to 9 Roosts and a full Para on this Soft Boiled. So there goes the Volt Switch from Zapdos. It's bringing in Mega Diancie with the poison. Some people were wondering, was that better than Kyurem? But I think Profa said he was wanting to avoid Seismic Toss there. So with Diancie, though, you know what you do here? You guarantee a KO. You preserve Kyurem, which is very important. And I've talked about this a lot in recent videos, but just the concept of when you unleash your big guns, your DD Sweeper, your Wall Breaker, whatever, it is so much more effective when the opponent has less tools to deal with it. I mean, it sounds obvious, right? But think about how these things usually get used. The way that people will unleash a DD sweeper on a fully healthy team. And yes, it'll often do damage because it's very strong, but think of how much scarier it gets with just a little bit of a support, if you just hang back just a little bit. A similar example, Gen 4, instead of lead Machamp and trying to muscle your way through a fully healthy team, get some rocks up, get some stand up, and then throw in just a standard lead Machamp, but just, with damage already spread on the opposing team. Gets infinitely harder to deal with. So the same idea here. Diancie not going to be doing much. So take this opportunity on the soft-boiled, and if a Seismic tosses, you would much rather Diancie go down than Kyurem eat the Seismic toss. That's really bad. But if Diancie goes down, then it goes down. And in the event that it soft-boils, or at full paras, the ideal scenario, then Diancie is still going to accomplish something. Obviously, the full para is ideal, but even without, then Chansey losing its Violite means it cannot take Diamond Storm. So Diancie forces a KO here. I mean, Scizor might live the Diamond Storm, but it'll then be forced to Bullet Punch, and then it will be forced out, and it'll be KO'd by Hazard, so that's not an option. Gliscor destroyed. Toxapex destroyed. Hydreigon destroyed. Ditto destroyed, so something is getting sacrificed here before Scizor or Ditto can revenge kill. And that's exactly what happens. As Hydreigon is sacrificed, going down to the Stealth Rock, no target for Diamond Storm. And now in comes Ditto. And this is where you realize, oh, this Ditto is actually kind of scary, because Brofist's team is also very weak. Lando dead to rocks, Pharaoh almost dead, Diancie about to die, Zapdos, hanging in there, but also Stealth Rock weak. Kyurem, also Stealth Rock weak, not as bulky. I mean, it's got great natural bulk. I mean, you saw the way it shrugged off Black Hole Eclipse. But, yeah. So, this also brings to mind just how important Tapu Fini is. I know we mentioned it earlier, but I want to draw attention to it again. That you don't want to put all this effort into breaking that core and then wind up just getting swept by Ditto. So, it's a very delicate dance that has to be pulled off. And this is exactly why Ditto is so good on these kinds of teams, by the way. It's like, oh, well, you finally broke through my core. Well, enjoy me reverse sweeping you with your own threat. So, Ditto just goes for the Moonblast. Down goes Diancie. In comes Tapu Fini, threatening the Ditto out. Notice the massive damage Ditto is taking from hazards. So, it's getting threatened out into Toxapex, which is just barely going to live 2 Surfs. But, I mean, look at just how badly it's hanging on. And now Fini's still in okay shape. Still not great shape, but okay shape. And now in comes Kyurem Black. Once again, look what he keeps doing. He keeps switching into Stealth Rock and taking Poison, and then roosting to the same threshold as Mega Scizor switches in, and then switching out again. I mean, it's technically gaining, a little bit of percent each time. But it's... you see what I'm getting at here. It just keeps roosting and shrugging off the rocks and Poison, and it's still putting in so much work. As Mega Scizor is also forced to roost, in comes Zapdos. Now we're in a different kind of loop. This one favoring Brofist much more. So, beautifully done there, as Kyurem Black is now putting on immense pressure without even actually attacking. So, Pex comes in on Zapdos, Chansey fearing for its life. Another HP Ice there, looking for the Gliscor, trying to cut it off. And once again, we see why that's such a fundamentally sound move, because, okay, Pex is in on Zapdos. And, Volt Switch goes off. It survives. Okay, who cares? Once again, here comes Kyurem Black, taking rocks, taking Poison. As Pex, I was going to say as Pex recovers, because I thought it did, but it doesn't. It just scalds. So now Kyurem Black, if it roosts, will have lost a bit of health net in the exchange. -7 from whatever threshold. But Toxapex is also not healed. Unless it stays in on the roost and recovers, and that's exactly what happens. But that also means Kyurem Black gets another recover. So rather than coming in at 75-ish and going down to under half, and then roosting, now it's going to get back up to... Oh, it's not going to get it back up to 100. It's going to Ice Beam. Okay, that's interesting. I thought... I wonder about that one. I mean, the idea is pretty okay, because the upside of KOing Gliscor, but is Gliscor ever pivoting in? I wonder what that was for. You know what I think it might have been for? I think it might have been for Ditto, because Ditto could come in and scare it. Could Ditto scare it out? I actually have to admit, I don't know if Ditto could use Z Freeze Shock. My my instinct is to say no, it can't. I don't think I've ever seen a Ditto use a Z move, but I could also totally be hallucinating that. So, yeah. Okay. Kyurem is... Yeah, I think it might have been for Ditto, though, because surely Gliscor's never pivoting in on a Roost. You know, then if it does that, you just Ice Beam. So I have to assume it was aiming for Ditto. I mean, Kyurem can still come in, but it's still kind of on the scarier side. So I was going to say roosting back up to 100 makes it possible for Kyurem to come in one of these loops from a Zapdos Volt Switch and actually attack, but actually attacks now. So, and this means that since it didn't find its target, that it's actually going to have a more difficult time switching in the field just to roost next time. So, Zap comes in as Scizor is once again obligated to roost, and that gives Zapdos a roost of its own. And the recovery is being forced on all angles here, as we're going to get a third consecutive turn of a recovery move, as Zapdos Volt switches on Chansey, and it's going to Soft Boiled. Note, by the way, how without the Eviolite, even something as seemingly innocuous as Zapdos Volt Switch is doing 14%, which is significant on a Pokemon lacking Leftovers recovery. In comes Lando T on the Sacrifice to preserve Kyurem Black's health against potential Seismic Toss. Because if it gets Seismic Toss there, that is horrible. So Lando T is sacrificed there for safety. In comes Scizor again for safety, as Kyurem Black goes for that Roost after it was forced into with that errant Ice Beam. But once again, Zapdos comes in, and you notice how even that isn't the worst thing, because, you know, nothing on Relous' team really threatens out Zapdos. And, you know, Chansey comes back in. Okay, you mean that thing that's going to take more hazard damage and get forced into Soft Boiled again? So there's no double switch or anything like that Relous can pull to really punish the Zapdos here. Enormous. So Scizor roosts up to full health, and you're thinking, well, look at this. Chansey's at 78, max hazards. It's, you know, losing Soft Boiled so quickly, and nothing switches in. So Zapdos is practically going to claim a KO here. You know, there's no reason for Brofist to even predict at all. Just go for a Heat Wave. You know, Pex doesn't want to switch in. Gliscor doesn't want to switch in. Ditto doesn't want to switch in. Chansey is not going to want to switch in, and Scizor gets destroyed. So what could go wrong? Well, Toxapex switches in, and he doesn't go for a Heat Wave, so I stand corrected. It's because I'm thinking of something. You'll see. Anyway, so Volt Switch on Zapdos. On Toxapex from Zapdos. Kyurem Black comes in again. In this position once again, it's going to roost. Will Toxapex recover? No, Scizor comes right back in, but that's just fine, because once again, the Zapdos switch cannot, well, I mean, it can be punished because it didn't roost up, and Stealth Rock is taking its toll. It'll be at less than half health, so theoretically, Scizor could, like, U-turn here and then force it out with Ditto from low health, and then it would be in a little bit of trouble because it would have to only come in after a KO against Chansey, so it could roost off. Otherwise, it would be too close to being KO'd after Stealth Rock and U-turn. So, I mean, it wouldn't be in Stealth Rock range, but it'd be close. So, but Zapdos comes in once again because no real better options. And also, if Scizor does U-turn, then yes, the struggle to get Zapdos in and healed will be difficult, but it will be worthwhile. It also comes with the massive upside of next time Kyurem Black comes in, something is getting KO'd. So, Zapdos comes in. It's going to force her on the Scizor Roost. Zapdos itself is forced to roost. Down to 7 roosts for Zapdos, 7 roosts for Scizor. Chansey comes in, forced to Soft Boiled. Once again, another loop of Kyurem Black coming in. Soft Boiled, again, down to 5. And Kyurem Black going to roost as well. It's doing pretty well. Or actually, no, it's also down to 7 roosts after that turn. Chansey Seismic tosses. So now, it's going to keep roosting. You know, Chansey's Seismic Toss is very, very scary. And Fusion Bolt will deck both Chansey and Scizor switching in, but you want to be healthy before you do that. So no risk to that roost. You do well if Scizor comes back in, because you're just going back to Zapdos, which is now roosted. And if Chansey stays in, I mean, you're just doing better before you unleash. You're keeping yourself at a higher health before you unleash the Fusion Bolt. So, Zapdos coming in once again here. And Scizor is going to knock off. So, finally, it has removed Zapdos' Rocky Helmet, which is significant, but it also has chipped itself with the Rocky Helmet damage before it has gone down. So that is major, since now Scizor is at under half health, and it is obviously getting ravaged by hazards. And Relous has no method of removing them, since the Scizor doesn't seem to have Defog, and Hydreigon is down. So barring Ditto copying Tapu Fini, then he's not going to be able to do anything like that. So yeah, now it's even more straightforward. The Zapdos can just Heat Wave, and I mean, if Chansey comes in, who cares? You roost that off, and you burn another Soft Boiled from it, and nothing else wants to switch in either. So this is the situation I was referring to earlier, where there's no reason not to Heat Wave. And Zapdos losing Rocky Helmet, I mean, who cares? You can't chip Gliscor Ice Fang anymore, since you got out in front earlier with that HP Ice, as we have to reset the playlist again. No, we don't. Since you got out in front of that earlier with HP Ice, now you are commanding the situation a lot more. You don't need to do that anymore. And honestly, the Rocky Helmet wasn't even the deciding factor there. It's not like the chip was pushing some sort of HP Ice to a KO threshold. No, it was just a nice little bonus. So who cares about losing the helmet? Static doesn't go off either. So Heat Wave goes off and it misses. And seeing this, I just wanted to... Everyone watching this just... I mean, really, a Heat Wave miss? 90% my ass. Oh my god, it's horrifying. Because Scizor goes down and then Kyurem wins and the game is over. But the miss goes off and Scizor gets the roost off. And oh my god, that was just deflating, devastating. One of the worst things to happen this year. Or any year. Oh my god. To see this game being played from Brofist and then see that fucking Heat Wave miss. Soul-crushing stuff. Yeah, the solace to be found here is that Brofist is still in a decent position that he has battled himself into. The problem, of course, is that, yeah, Scizor got away. So now, once again, Roost, as Chansey comes in and gets ravaged by hazards, plus Volt Switch, Kyurem's going to come in. It's going to Roost back up to full. Scizor comes in. The Scizor that should be dropped. And it's taken, it's losing a little bit of health. Kyurem's in good condition. Once again, Zapdos. Round and round and round we go. And so Zapdos comes in on Scizor, and fortunately, since the same principle applied, nothing really changed. Chansey was still very reluctant to switch in. So Scizor stays in, survives the Heat Wave because it's got plenty of special defense investment, clearly because it needs to take on Tapu Lele's Focus Blasts and Psychics, and even like Moonblast if you're trying to keep Chansey away from Psyshocks. Then you can live a Heat Wave from uninvested Zapdos, which honestly is very impressive, but you get a burn for your trouble this time around. But that doesn't... So, I mean, the U-turn does half what it would have done, but it's more the fact that it doesn't even matter because, besides that, a little less percent from U-turn, which I don't know if... Let's not, I know little details are important and everything, but, come on, Kev, easy. Yeah, Scizor is dead to hazards. So, Zapdos Volt Switch is not getting too precious with Roost PP yet. And instead of here comes Kyurem once again, as Chansey soft boils again, down to 3. It's going to Roost with Kyurem, down to 4 Roosts, so it can't do this forever. But, and it's going to Roost again, down to 3. So Chansey's really asking for it. And finally, you see the Z Unleashed, and Sub-Zero Slammer obliterates an Eviolite-less Chansey. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Oh, to see that, look, turn 116 is when the Z goes off. And isn't just that a thing of beauty? I was trying to find, I wasn't paying attention to the timer and the log so much because I was so engrossed in the battle situation. But now I remember watching this live, and Brofist had a couple of classic Brofist moments where the timer was really dropping. Here you see 30, 20, 25, 20, 15, 25, 30. There was definitely a case where he went down to 5. Yeah, look, that turn 85 where after Ditto revenge killed Diancie, and before he sent Tapu Fini in, I assume he was just checking the calcs, Moonblast, should I send in Ferrothorn instead? So he goes all the way down to 5 seconds. Wish I'd noticed that while doing this recording. But whatever, better late than never. And honestly, the situation was so engrossing that this is more just a bonus. I usually don't show the battle log for a reason unless something interesting happens. But not that wasn't interesting, but you get my point, I hope. I might not be super coherent because it's late and I've been yapping for over an hour, as is my specialty. Anyway, Gliscor comes in. It's going to be slower. It's slower than Zapdos. It just existed to get Ice Beamed and to rack up more poison damage on the Kyurem so that Ditto could come in and revenge kill it. So Ditto transforms into Kyurem Black, and Brofist is going to preserve the Kyurem for the Pex. He's going to go to Ferrothorn because it'll get KO'd by Ice Beam, and Relous actually goes for Fusion Bolt so that Tapu Fini cannot take it, hoping that Brofist would do that. But unless it crits Zapdos, then it's not going to make anything happen. And Fusion Bolt goes off, and if it crit, I think they would have had to cancel Pokemon Showdown forever. It doesn't crit. Roost goes off. At this point, after that first one, you're good. I don't even know if a crit would have KO'd there from that range. So, down. Yep, nope, it's good. Zapdos outroosts the Fusion Bolt, which runs out. And there's the forfeit because it ran out of Fusion Bolt PP. And Scizor was down, Toxapex was dead. Zapdos was just going to win because Ditto can't switch in and out of hazards. And it would have struggled here because it ran out of the 5 Fusion Bolts it gets because Ditto always copies every PP to 5, which is why it has infinite PP if it can switch in and out, incidentally. But yeah, it runs out here because it's 5, and because it's choice locked, it can't switch moves, so it can only, yeah. The whole reason why Scarf Ditto works can also be used against it. So, Relous is going to forfeit since he was unable to crit his way through that, and otherwise he would have had to like crit his way through the Kyurem, or the Tapu Fini. I think Tox. Yeah, that's why, I mean, right to the very end, preserving Kyurem Black, so if you get in that situation, then you can still beat the Toxapex one-on-one. So, beautifully done to preserve that. Yeah, so, incredible performance by Brofist. I mean, just, I cannot be praised enough. And I also must mention how excellent Relous was, because it's not like he was just rolling over here. He played a hell of a game and brought a great team, and was very advantaged with what the matchup was. But yeah, I mean, I've sung Brofist's praises for over an hour now, so I won't do it too much more. But yeah, this should be an inspiration, a lesson, all that jazz for anyone who's ever had a bad matchup and gone, oh well, bad matchup, not much I can do. The hell there isn't. I mean, yes, bad matchups will exist, of course, but you push it to the bitter end, and sometimes the end might not wind up being bitter. That was cheesy and terrible, I'm sorry, but yeah, yeah. So there's a lot to be learned. Also, the lesson to be learned to be very careful about Toxic Spikes, Toxapex. Always make sure you're good against that. Also, funnily enough, after the game, guys were talking like, dude, Taunt Fini would have been absolutely nuts. Dude, if that thing had Taunt, it was going absolutely buck wild. But yeah, so that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Congrats to Brofist on another career game, and I will see you all in the next one.